Okay, welcome to this course on Nurbs modelling. Well, it's more of a sort of like introduction to how Nurbs modelling works. Now, as you can see here, I've got this car. Now, this car was primarily, all the main shell of the car was actually built using Nurbs curves. So, let's just turn these off and I'll turn my curves on. And these are the curves that were used to build the car. So I just wanted to show you this and show you how powerful it is. That's my Nurbs surface, and then I converted it finally into a poly shell. If I take that and press 1 on my keyboard, you can see, but that's directly taken off of the Nurbs surfaces. And you might be wondering, why would you use Nurbs when you can use polygons? Well, because of the power of the Nurbs curves. Once you create some geometry based on a curve, you can then quite easily, you don't have to select any points on the Nurbs surface, you can just tweak the Nurbs curve and the Nurbs surface will change accordingly. So there's a curve there. If I grab a control point here, just press W on my keyboard, you can see when I move it, oh, it's probably not based off of that, but you will see that it will actually move with it, although I think I haven't it's not actually fixed on it at the moment, but I'll show you that. But I just wanted to show you a model that's been built using Nurbs curves and to show you how effective it is at creating these nice smooth surfaces. The problem you have with polygons, if you're building it from polygons, is you can tweak a vertice and then you get funny lumps and things appearing in the model afterwards. But with the curves, it's much smoother. As you can see, it just pulled the vertices out, puts a horrible lump in there. So let's set this as a project, and I'll just show you how they kind of work. And it's just a general. This is general training showing you about Nurbs. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the project, and it's on my desktop. So here we go. So I'll set that as the project and create a default workspace there. I'm just going to go to my project window. I'll just close this down, check it's created a workspace. Now I need to just set the project for that. So same as you would with any project windows in Nurbs. I'm going to accept. Now I'm going to do a new scene. Not going to save that, and I'm just going to save this scene inside of my scenes folder. I'm going to call it Nurbs 1. Now Nurbs scares a lot of people because it uses because you do get unexpected results and you're like, why has that happened? But I'm going to try and make this as easy as possible. Now if we come into our surface thing here, surface tab, we make sure that curves are picked. We could go to surfaces, and these are basic geometric shapes based on Nurbs. Not Nurbs curves, but just Nurbs. So if I just push one in here, that will create, put that on smooth shade, that will create myself a Nurbs surface. So if you right hand click, you haven't got things like face or any of those vertices, because it's actually a Nurbs. And you'll also see it's a slightly thicker line here, so it basically creates it and then butts it up. I mean, if I render this out, it's still nice and smooth. You can't actually really see that, but wherever you do get these thicker lines, best to place them at the back, although we would end up converting this into a polygon in any case. But if we look at some of the options in here, you can see what make Nurbs cylinder. We can change these settings, and you see where it was thicker line there, it sort of opens it up from that point. You can also change things like the radius. You can even add more sections or take the sections away. I could also give it more spans across here. and the height ratio. So that's these basic geometric shapes that you've got here, but we're concentrating. You'll also see that it will separate it all out. So although it is one, it separated it all out, top and bottom. And if I wanted to turn that into a polygon, I could come over here to modify. I go down to convert, and I could go Nurbs to polygon. Just going to hit this little box, and I'm going to U-type per span or isopalms. These lines are isopalms, yeah, any of these lines, so it's going to match those. It's also going to match the V-type. This is U and V. This is across the surface of the model. It's not X, Y and Z coordinates. These U and V refer to the positioning of coordinates on the surface of the model itself. So if I click apply, I now move this out the way, you'll see that I have actually got, although it's separated out, I have got a polygon. Of course I could select these, and then I could use the mesh. I could go into the polygon tool here, go to mesh and then combine. Then I could click the vertices, because at the moment these vertices here are not merged. So I would drag across these, go to edit mesh, click on the little box by merge, make sure this tolerance is 0.002. I would merge them. Now of course I could put a smooth shader on this, and it would give me that smoothed look. Or of course I can press 1, make sure my normals are hardened, and then I would get that. But if I wanted it to be smooth, I would press 3. If I wanted a hard edge on the edge, then I would just come up here, go insert edge loop, and I would insert an edge loop up to the top, down to the bottom, also one around here and one around here, and now it will have hardened those edges up, as you can see. Right, so that's basic modelling of the using the primitives, but now we're going to get onto the curves. Okay, so for a Nurbs curve we can use the circle or square, and this does exactly what it says, creates a circle curve, as you can see, which we can still move around, and we can turn it this way and that way, whatever you like. I'll leave it down there. So I'm going to drag this out here. Okay, I'll use the move tool. I'm going to press Ctrl D to duplicate this, bring it up here. Now I've got two curves. Now if we look at what we get here, if I right hand click, I can go to Control Vertexes. It tells me there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. And also on this one there's also 8, and because I duplicated, they're exactly in line with each other. If we look here at the Nurbs circle shape, it tells me spans 8. So if I want to create some geometry between this curve and this curve, I can shift select in either order, it doesn't really matter. I normally work from bottom to top. Then I can come into my surfaces and I can just loft, and now that will loft between them, and it also gives me the control in here to take the section spans down or up. So I've created a Nurbs sort of cylinder there using these two curves, but bear in mind that it's based on these two curves. So, and this is where the power comes in. If for instance I wanted to taper this in, I could select this top curve, press the scale tool and scale it in, and you'll see it's following it. I could also move it up, and I could also rotate it like that. if I wanted to put a top on it, I could reuse this curve, select the curve, and I could do a planar across the top. I could also go into Nurbs surface display and I could crank this up, because when I come to convert it I want it to be quite close to this original one. So now I've got both of these, I could convert this into a Nurbs polygon. Like this. And now I've got a Nurbs surface and I've got a polygon surface. So you can see the power. Of course, if you're not going to export this out, or it doesn't have to be a polygon, then you can leave it as a Nurbs. If you're just going to colour it up, come into rendering and make it a blin and change it to a red colour or something, and you just want to render it out like that, you can do. And leave the curves. Now a good idea I always find is to take the curves and to put them on a layer. So I click this thing here, I create a new layer, and then I separate my things out. So I've selected and I've shift selected this, right hand click on this layer, add selected, and I normally call this Nurbs and save it. Then I can turn it off, but it will still give me these curves. So I create another layer called curves and I add that to these, and this way I can turn them off and on if I need to. I can also use this as a reference object, as a templated reference object, so I'm not going to accidentally pick it. I might want to go and grab a control vertex and pull it out. As you can see, it's affecting the geometry as well. So this is using this circular curve, and remember that both the curve settings were on 8, the sections were on 8, the spans, sorry, were on 8, and this is really important. So I'm going to just select this now and just delete it out. Okay. So that was using this circle, and the square works in exactly the same way. But what about this, the EP curve? Well, there's two types, there's EP and there's CV. So let's just draw out a CV curve. I'm just going to hit this little box and you'll see some options come up. Now play around with these, but I've got it on 3 cubic and I've got it on uniform. So in my top view now, I'm just pressing space bar and putting my mouse over it. I'm going to click here, I click here, I click here, click here, I click here, and I'm going to click here. But you notice that when I clicked, after the third click, it joined it up. If I press enter now, that's my curve. And my control vertexes are where my points were. Yep. So that's a CV curve. But after 3, so let me just do this again. So I'm going to press G to modify and create the CV curve again. So I click once, click again, and it's 1, 2, 3. So it's after the third one, it will then try and join up. So it will take an average between here, here and here, and it will put a line through here, and then it'll average out to the next one, so down here. So it's basically going halfway through here, then it's coming down there, and then I can press that. So that's the CV curve. So what about the EP curve? Again, got it on there. Well, the EP curve is slightly different. I'm going to select this, It actually bases its curve on where the points are. So you see, wherever I put a point, it goes through the middle and it sort of smooths it out between the two. So I tend to use the EP curve just because of the control that it gives you. Yeah? So that's the difference between the CV and the EP curve. If we now have a look at the EP curve, let's take linear, turn it on to linear. So I'm now going to press 1 there. Now you see it's a linear, so it's a straight line curve. Yeah? So what about 2? Well, after 2 points, it will start to link them. I've got it on CV curve, so it's averaging between the two, but you can see what I mean. So I'm going to go EP curve again, linear, here we go, so 2, so 1, 2, and the next one, now it will start to link between them. So that's the difference between the EP and the CV tools. Don't use the Bezier curve tool much, and generally on the EP curve I just put it on to 3. But let's put it on Bezier here and see what happens. As you can see, that's given me the ability to be able to take these handles and manipulate it further. So that's the EP Bezier option. The one I tend to use is just the standard. Let's go to object mode. Let's just delete these out. Let's get to them, delete them. Is the standard 3 cubic. Yeah? So let's play around with this. I'm going to leave it on this setting. We've got the EP curve tool on and 3 cubic. So let's draw out a little curve. Let's just do a little wave. Yeah, okay. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to come to this view. I'm going to do exactly the same as we did before. So I'm going to press Ctrl D to duplicate. I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to select this one, I'm going to go into my surfaces and I'm going to loft. And there we go. So that's duplicating a curve. Now of course I could take this top one, I could grab some of these and move them around, and it's going to alter. So you can see how powerful it is. I can just tweak things as I'm going along based on a curve. I can move it up and down. I can select the curve up here, move it down, move it up, move it across, whatever I like. It will fix it to this side, but it will change on this side. So I think already you can see how quick you can do these things. Whereas if I was going to do this using polygon methods, it would take much longer. I'd have to build it up, and then I'd have to watch out for any vertices and things like that. So if I've done it as a NURB, I can, as before, I can always convert this NURB to a polygon like this, and get the same result, but done in a fraction of the time. So that's the major benefit of the NURBs. Now there are things to consider. At the moment we've just been duplicating a face, which is all very well and good, but there'll be times where you want this curve to run into another curve that's different, especially over something like a car or something. So let's do that. Let's create another curve and pretend we're putting it in position. So I'm going to pick my EP curve again, and I'm going to this time run this out as a kind of, doesn't matter where I go, I'm just going to sort of run it out. and we're going to get some errors, which I want. Okay, so we got that. Pretend we want to put that about there, and we want it to be kind of above it. Right, now we want to link this to this. So you might think, well, yeah, I can just loft that straight between the two. So let's do that and see what happens. Well, it's worked, but it hasn't gone straight up. It's kind of a bit all over the place, but it has kind of worked. So how can we get this to be better? Because if we look at this into our options, we can see we've got 5 spans, and on this one you can see we've got 6. So there's a difference. So what we need to do is make sure that these are the same, that the spans going across are the same. So we can go to control vertices. The first thing I would say is to make sure that your start and end is at the right place. When I say the start and the end, you'll see this little U and then this little end bit. On this one, we go to control, you'll see it's on the other end. We need to reverse them. So what you do is just right hand click, and that's because I drew this one from the left and started drawing it from the left, and this one I started drawing it from the right, and I did that on purpose just to show you. So if I want to reverse this curve start direction, in fact I think it would be better to do this one because he's at that end. So I'm going to reverse that, so you're going to see that U flip over to this side. So I'm going to press the space key, I'm going to go to edit curve, and I'm going to go to reverse curve direction. Now I'm going to go into the control vertex, and you can see that it's at the other end, and so is that. So the next thing I've got to do is to make sure that I've got 6, there's 6 spans here and there's 5 here, so I need to make this 6 spans, and that is 6 of these vertices. And I also need to make sure that they're uniform across it. So I'm actually going to crank this up a bit because this is quite a tight form, so I think I'm going to crank up to about 12. Because of this I need more points rather than less. So to rebuild this curve, which is what we're doing, to 12, we need to select it, right hand click, go to edit curve, and down to rebuild curve. Just hit the little square. I'm going to keep the ends, I'm going to keep it uniform, and we're going to set the number of spans to 12, and I'm going to click rebuild. It will change the shape slightly, but always go from a small amount to a higher amount and you won't affect it that much. So if I go to edit curve here, because the settings are the same, 12, I can rebuild this. You'll see it just smooths it out, so you might need to go in a little bit and tweak some of these, but you'll see that these points now are much more even, as well as these ones are much more even. So now if I go and do a loft between these two, we look in here, 12 spans. If we look in here, 12 spans. I can now loft this, and as you can see, that's much better. You've got things going from here right the way across. So what we did there was we made sure that the surface direction of the curve was at the same place, or left or right, making sure that they were starting from the same place. Then we rebuilt our curve direction. On the bottom one it was 6, we increased it to 12. On the top one it was 5, and we increased it to 12. And that gave us good parameterization across the surfaces. And this is really important. Okay, so that is the basics of Nurbs and modelling. So if you want to start drawing curves out for a car, you can do that. I'm going to show you one more thing now. Just going to get rid of this. Say I wanted to do a split. So I'd drawn my surface, but I wanted to split this curve because I'd drawn it in one go, which is the best way to do it. But I wanted to break my curve, say here and here. Just say there's like a split in these curtains or something. Well, we can do that. What we can do is we can zoom in, we can go to curve point, and we can drag. This will follow this curve around. We can put it where we want. Now we can right hand click, go to edit curve, and we can detach the curve. This is now two curves. Yeah? And up here we want to do the same thing, so I'm going to go to curve point, put that roundabout there, edit curve and detach curve. Now when we do this, we need to make sure that again the start and end point are in the right places, which I think they will be. Yeah, so they're all starting from here and here, and these are starting from here to here, because that's good. But the other thing we might need to do is to rebuild the curve. Now I've got span 6 there. Let's have a look at this one, span 6, so that's alright. That one's 7 and this one's 7, so that's alright. But my min and max value is out. So I'm going to rebuild this. We want to make sure min and max value are 0 to 1. So I'm going to rebuild all of these. So I'm going to go to this one. I'm going to go to edit curve. So we're looking at these values. Yeah, I'm still going to put it at 6 spans, but I'm just basically rebuilding it. So I'm going to edit curve, and we're going to go to rebuild curve. I'm going to put 6 in here and rebuild. Now we've got 0 to 1, which is perfect. And I'm going to do the same. Those settings are the same, so I'm going to click that, and 0 to 1, 6 spans. Now we go to this one, it's got 7 spans. I'm going to edit curve. I've got to go back into the box here and put 7 in there and rebuild. And you see it's 0 to 1 again. And this one is 0.5 to 1, but it's still 7, so we can do the same. Edit curve, rebuild curve, make sure it's 7, rebuild. Okay, again it might need a bit of tweaking, but it's 0 to 1. And now what we can do is we can loft these like that, and now we have something that's split. You can't even see the split in it, but it's there, you know. You can move the objects without moving the curves. That's something to bear in mind. Try not to do that. Try and select the curves and just move them. Otherwise funny things will start happening. But you can see we put a cut in there. And this is very good for like panels of a car, because say I want to convert this into a polygon. I can go to convert Nurbs to polygon. I'm going to go into the options. I want these on 1, so it's 1 for 1, and apply. Do the same for this and apply. Close. I should be able to take these over here, put them into 3, but remember these are polygons. And then I'm going to select one of these. I'm going to select the faces, and I'm going to come into polygons, and I'm just going to extrude this back a little bit. I'm going to do the same with this one. Like that. Need to just put some edge loops in, so I'm just going to insert some edge loops around here, right around the edge. This will just harden it up, but just give me a nice little crease. Same for the bottom. Oh no, done that one. Same here. I'm not worrying about this end. This is just a demo to you. Okay, I can put that into 3 again. Put this into 3, and now you can see I've got a nice little join between these two areas. which could be the panel of a car or something, you know. So that's how easy it is to turn the NURBS into a polygon, and also to cut the NURBS up while you're working. Yep, so there's a few more things I've got to show you. I've got to show you how to do things called Byrails, which is very important if you're like modelling a car. So say for instance you've got the top of the front of the car going around, and then you've got the bottom part of the car, and then you've got different curvatures going from the top to the bottom all the way around the car. A bit like something like a flag. Well, let's do something based on that. So I'm going to just create an EP curve, and I'm going to just take this side view and draw in sort of car sort of shape. Yeah, and then for the top, the car would sort of do this. Yeah, that's where the sort of door come in. So that kind of thing. Okay, so if we come in our side view, they're both, move one slightly there. Yeah, so at the moment we got both of these. First thing we need to do, of course, is to check the direction. These should both be the same because I started at the same place. Yeah, they are. But we got spans 5. Let's increase this to 8. So we're going to edit curve, go to rebuild curve, and actually I have to do it to 12. Rebuild, and we'll do the same for this one. Edit curve and rebuild. Just check these. 12, 0 to 1, 12, 0 to 1. Okay, so what we'd normally do, what we did before, was to just loft between the two, which is good, but what if there's a slight curve coming out? Well, we can do that. We can create an EP curve. What I do is I press the C key. So I've clicked and I press the CV key. And the reason I've done that is that it will snap to this curve, and using Byrail it needs to be snapped to the curve. So now I'm going to create a little piece like this. I go in a little bit here, and then I'm going to snap it to this, like that. Okay, so it's a funny shape, and I'm going to press enter. So I know it's snapped to those points. So now I'm going to press the EP call again, and I'm going to press the C key, snap it to here, and once again I'm going to start to come down with this. And now I'm going to snap it to this. Yeah, I'm going to press enter. Now I'm going to do another one. Now there's a reason why I'm doing 3. I'll tell you. I'll show you in a minute. I'm going to press for the end. You don't need to go right to the end because it will carry the form on. But for this demo, I'm going to just show you. And finally there. Okay, so what I've got here, I'm going to just turn the grid off so we can see, is a complex shape. And pretend this is a car, pretend this is like the middle section of the car, this is the just the sort of bonnet area coming down to the door, and this is the bottom part of the car here. It'd be quite hard to actually shape this to form something going over the top. But using Byrails we can do that. Now the most important thing is to make sure that these are snapped to the lines, and to also make sure that we've got the right number of spans. That's got 5 on this front one, this one's only got 3, so I need to rebuild it. So I'm going to edit curve and I'm going to rebuild this curve to 5 and rebuild. I'm going to check this one out. This is 4, so I need to rebuild this. So they should all be 0 to 1, 5, and I'll even rebuild this front one. Yep, so now they're all correct. There's 5 spans going across and there's 12 spans for the top. So to do a bi-rail we need to make sure we're in surfaces. Now although I've been mousing here for the hotbox, you can actually do it via the surface tag up here. If we go to surfaces and bi-rail, this gives us our bi-rail options. Now bi-rail 1 is if you've got one rail or 1 point, 2 rails and 1 point to run along. This is for 2 rails and 2 point. So when I say 2 rails, these are the rails. So these are basically like a train tracks run over the whole surface. The actual points are these. So it uses these as guides as it run along the track. As the geometry run along this track, it will then take the options of these. Okay, so as we got 3, we're going to need to go to Byrail 3+. Now if you've got more than 3, you can use more than 3 using this Byrail Plus. Just hit this option box and we want to output the geometry as Nurbs, because you can output it directly as polygons, but we're going to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to click apply. Down here it will say select any number of profile curves. So I'm going to select 1, then we're going to select 2, then we're going to press enter. It tells you press enter. Now we're going to select the rails or the rail curves. And that's 1, 2 and 3. Now, as you can see, it's done it, but it's not exactly what I had in mind. Let's do it again. Apply. 1, 2, enter. Alright, not that it would matter, we just do it again. Click 1, click 2, press enter, select the rails this way, and there. So as you can see, it's taken on this curve's properties, this curve's properties, and lastly this curve's properties. And you'll see that it's done a kind of 50% blend between the two. If we look at our bi-rail here, this gives us our blend factor. So let's start this again. Actually, I'm not happy with that. I'm going to go into the 3+ tool. Right, sorry, these are profile curves. I need to come across this way. Now I press enter, and now I need to do it to these. Okay, there you go. So it's now smoothed it off. That's much better. I haven't got that snagging there. So that's pretty good. And of course I've got my Byrail tangencies here. So that's that, and of course this now, this complicated shape that we just created could easily be converted to a polygon. Sometimes it's not exactly the same. You might need to come in and tweak a few of these settings. I tend to come up on these. It'll double out. There you go. It's a bit closer. But you can see now how quick it is to actually render out geometry using Nurbs curves. And of course, if you've always got these to hand, I can come in and I can play around. I can tweak things up and down. But look how smooth the surface is when I do that, because it does it between each of the units here. It's almost like stretching kind of cling film over it. And so you could tweak this to get it exactly how you wanted, and then you could do the conversion to a polygon. So that's basic Nurbs modelling. I hope you've enjoyed this and you've learnt a few bits. Remember, the most important thing when using Byrails is to make sure that your curves are snapped. Just delete this to make sure that these rails are snapped. So the control vertexes are snapped to these points. So if you haven't done that, then the Byrail won't work. Like, I've moved that away. So if I want to snap it back onto it, I've got to press the C key and then make sure that I'm in it. And when I'm in it, you'll see it will run along that curve when I've snapped. It can be very tricky. You might need to come in and rotate around. So if you can't do it, you spend 5 minutes trying to do it, you'll understand why. And that's basically because you're and it might even try and snap down to the grid as well, so which is what it's doing there. Sometimes it can be really tricky to get it to work. It require you to come in and there you go, I'm on it again. It doesn't snap to it as quickly as you would want it to. So bear that in mind. So that's why I tend to build the rails, and when I'm creating the EP curves, I press the C key and then it will allow me to snap directly to any curve. So I can do around like this, then I can C key it onto here, or down to here. Press enter and I know that it's formed nicely. Of course you would go in there and move this as well to wherever you wanted it. Something like that, or not. Yep, so I hope this course has been helpful to you. It's a basic course on how to set up Nurbs curves for lofting and for using the powerful Byrail technique. There's other tools in here, but those are the main ones that you use if you're creating sort of like hard surface models. And we also covered how to convert it into polygons from the Nurbs patch, and also how to reverse the curve direction, how to rebuild the curves to make sure that your parametrization is correct across the curved surface. Okay, as a bit of an example and a sort of bonus lesson, I want to show you how I'm going to use the Nurbs curves to create a spring. There's actually a suspension arm here on this Ducati bike, and there's a spring that runs up and down on a sort of piston cylinder. So if I just show you an example of that over here, one of these pictures there, you can just see it in there, and my side view there shows it there. So let's create that. There it is, sort of there. There's also like a little compressor in front of it as well, and I think I've got that on my drawings. So here's my bike here, so I don't need this at the moment because I'm purely working on the spring. So as you can see, all my components are all put on layers. I haven't organised this yet, so it's a little bit all over the place. Okay. Okay, there's my views. Okay, so I think it's the side view I'm looking at. Okay, so here it is. Here's my spring here. So the first thing I can do is to create this cylinder inside here, which I can change later. So I'm going to just create this cylinder here. To make it easy for me, I'm going to keep everything straight, and I'm not going to put the angle on until the end. So, but the first thing I want to do is take this cylinder, and this is a polygon cylinder, and just make the subdivisions on the axis. I'm going to take them down to 8 because I don't need so many on this, because when I smooth it, it will be nice and round anyhow. Oh. Okay. So that will do. So all I need to do now is just to get my size right for this, so I know how far up the spring is going to come across. I'm just going to bring this down here. Have a look. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. There's about 5 loops on it. Don't worry too much about this. Okay. Right, so that's roughly about the right size. If I just turn this, if we have a look here, you can see my angle that I'm turning it. 16, so if I put it about here, needs to probably be a bit higher. That's probably about right there. Okay, good. So I'm going to have about 5 loops roughly going around this. So the next thing I need to do is come across to my Nurbs curves, click a curve out, and I'm just going to drag this, and I want it to be round about that size. Okay. I want to have a look at my Nurbs curve. I've got 8 spans, 8 sections there. I'm going to drop that down to 4, just make it a little bit more easy to handle. When I say to handle, it means that I'm going to have less points. I'll just rotate this first and I can sort of demo it to you. So I'm going to turn this at 90 degrees. So over here is just where all my attributes are, so I'm just flicking around to get in here. So we'll have a look at this. I'm just going to move this down now, and if I click control vertexes, you'll see there's 4. The reason I picked 4 is going to be much easier for me to change these around to shift it. So all I need to do is to add a curve point in. So to make life a little bit easier, I'm just going to go to this view, click that in there. Then I'm going to go to Edit Curve and Detach. Whoops. Edit curve, cut curve. So yeah, I'm having a bit of a stupid problem here. Okay, so what we did was we detached the curve on the back there. So I need to do another curve point and come to this front section like that. Okay, now I can go Edit Curve and Detach. So we detached at the back and we detached at the front. Now I need to grab this and we need to start to move things up. So I'm going to grab this and this, start to move them so we get a kind of helix happening. Now what I need to do is to take both of these, go to Edit Curve and attach the curve. Okay, so we detached it and we've attached it. Now we'll have a look and see, are we happy with this, the way it's coming around? Yeah, pretty much. I might bring this up a tad more. I might just knock this down a little bit as well, and this back one a little bit. Okay, so we got that. So what I need to do now is I just need to duplicate. So we're going to press Control D to duplicate. We're going to bring this up and we're going to very carefully look through this and make sure that I'm in roughly the same position. And now I want to Edit Curve and Attach. Sometimes it might go a little bit funny, so you might need to delete one of those. And we'll do the same. And duplicate and bring it up. Take this, Edit Curve, Attach. Always watch that you delete that one. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to have far too many, but it's alright because I'm going to delete half of it anyway. So I'm going to duplicate again, Control D, move it up, zoom back in. And the reason I'm doing it like this, and I'm not just doing it as a cylinder and then cut it as a pipe and then cutting it and move it up, is that it does give me the flexibility to be able to change the size of the spring. So that's why I'm doing it like this. Got another one there. Okay, so what have we got so far? We got 1 loop, 2 loops, 3 loops, 4 loops, 5 loops. So we don't need all this stuff here, but I kind of want it to meet back up here again. So I'm going to select all of this and this, and I'm going to just delete it out. Let's have a look at the spring now. Well, I've got some at the back there. I don't need that. They're not needed. That's it. It's jumped back. So that's our spring, which looks quite nice. So next thing we need to do is create the actual geometry that's going to go around this. So I'm going to use another circle here. And I think my spring size, maybe I'll put it about like that. Because I want it to go around, I want it to follow this, so I need to rotate this on the Y here 90 degrees. Okay, and the reason I've done that again is because the spring is going to go around here, so I want this profile to be facing this direction. Okay, now I'm going to shift select this, and I'm going to go to my surfaces, and I'm just going to use this tool which we haven't used, which is the extrude. Whoa, so funny things have happened, but we can correct those. It's kind of gone around it. If we look over here in the extrude attribute editor, we need to do the fixed path for starters, and we need to use components pivot. So just by doing those two things, fixed path, otherwise it will jump back to that circle, so fixed path and then components pivot. Now we have the flexibility to be able to change the size of this using the scale tool to get the size of the scale, the size of the spring, like that. Not only that, is we can control the path as well, which we have in here, and I could move this, move it up, move it down. I also can select this extruded surface itself and go, yeah, that's pretty good. So that's good to keep, but it's not that smooth, is it, if we look at it? It's good of our sections. So I could rebuild this curve. So if I select that curve and I go down to edit curve and select the rebuild option, I could set this to something like 30 and apply. It would give me a much smoother, but also I can do the same with this, which has only got 8 sections. I could make this let's say 16 sections and apply, and you'll see that it starts to smooth it out even more. So it's pretty good. I don't actually need it because I'm going to convert it into a polygon anyway, but that's how to smooth that down. So that looks quite nice. So I could use this, but if I wanted to convert it to a polygon, I come to modify, and then I would come to my Nurbs to polygon section, and I could increase this to get more density in there. I'll increase this to 3. So for every one isopalm there's going to be 3 polygon panels, if you like. So I'll just apply that. Center my pivot, move this out, and as you can see this is now a polygon, and of course I can use the smoothing on this to get it perfectly smoothed. So that's how to create a spring, which I'm going to put into my motorbike using Nurbs modeling. Right, okay, carrying on with the Nurbs kind of like bonus lesson, which is turning into a lesson in its own right. I want to show you another thing on revolving. Here's that motorbike that I did, and you can see I've put the spring in place now, and that was created with the Nurbs. Created a little cylinder there, blah blah blah. I also used some curves here to generate off of the polygon model a Nurbs curve, in which I then created this piece. So to generate a curve off of a polygon surface, pretty easy. Let's pick something like this. First of all, I'll take it down to there, and I'll just say, okay, let's just grab this edge, which has gone right the way around the tank. Now to generate a curve from that, all I can do is I can right hand click, go to edit curves. Oh, sorry, not edit curves. I want to go to modify and then go down to convert. And you can see down here, polygon edge to curve. Let's just hit the checkbox and leave it at best guess and linear and convert that. Now I can center my pivot point, and I now have a Nurbs curve which I can generate a Nurbs surface of. So if I press Control D, I could then do that. I could take these two, come back into surfaces here, and I could loft between them, giving me something that's going to match up exactly with the contour of that tank. So that's very, very important to know that. Of course, then you can modify that, and I could then go to convert and convert Nurbs to polygon. And of course now I've got a polygon face. I could delete this now because I don't need them, and then I could use the smoothing action, drop that down, and it would sink back into exactly the same point if I smooth this off as well, where we had that surface come off of. So you can generate basically the same shape off of a polygon curve, so real flexibility there. But that isn't actually what I was going to show you. I'm just going to save this scene, and I just want to go to new scene, and I'm going to show you a pretty common thing that's used all the time, which is the revolve. You've probably seen quite a few of these kind of tutorials. It's the old wine glass tutorial. It's a good one. Right, what I've done is a wine glass is basically going to be sitting flat on here, and it's just going to be up. So I probably want to pick my front face because I know my X and my Y coordinates are up and across, and that's what I want, because when I revolve it, I want it to revolve on the Y axis, so it spins around on itself. So axes are very important in this. So let's go and grab a EP curve, and I'll just come into the options, because what I want to do is make it linear, because I'm going to smooth it off when I turn it into a polygon. So let's do a wine glass. So the first thing I'm going to do is press X to lock it to the center. This will be the inside of the glass, and then I'm just going to kind of just do a kind of winey kind of shape, like this. And then it comes down like that, I'm pressing the shift to make it straight, and I'll do about there. Not very nice wine glass, but you get the idea. Then I'm going to press the X again to lock it onto there, and then I'm going to press enter. Okay, so we got our wine glass. Of course I could rebuild that curve if I wanted it to have more points in there. And in fact, how many have I got? Let's have a look. 19. So let's make it 24. So edit curve, and I'm just going to rebuild it. Now, you don't need to do this, but I'm going to. 24 rebuild. Okay. Probably leave it actually. Alright, let's go into surfaces and revolve. I'm going to double click this, and you can see axis on the X. Now if you wanted to revolve on the sorry, I've got it on the Y. If you want it to revolve on the X, then you'd hit X. If you want it to revolve on the Z, then you'd hit Z. And then you've got end sweep angle. These you can change actually, but it's going to do 360 degrees. How many segments? Going to give me 8. So let's up this to 12. And I can output the geometry as Nurbs or as polygons. So let's export it as a polygon and revolve this. Now smooth shade it, and as you can see there's 12 divisions there because we just set them. And also I can press this, which is 3 on the keyboard, and it gives me a nice, so it looks more like an egg cup, but it is a polygon, but I can still manipulate it. Now I'm going to point something out here. If I grab all of this and I delete my history, no longer will this be affected. seems to be two curves there. Oh yeah, because inside and outside. Because I've deleted the history, so it's no longer connected to this curve. So bear that in mind, because sometimes you might have a model and you might select it all and go, oh, I want to delete the history on everything, forgetting about the Nurbs curves, and then you'll delete a history and then you won't be able to modify those. I had a similar thing happened on the exhaust pipe of the bike, where I wanted to change it and then I realised I deleted the history. So it's a bit of a pain to manually change things then. It was quicker to do it that way. So bear that in mind, that you can have that problem. So if I didn't want to delete the history on that, I could go back and then I could well, okay, so I've gone back, I've Control Z, gone back, and now I can change it again. So that's basically how to do that. So let me make it more like a wine glass. Let's bring this up. Maybe bring it out a little bit more. Bring it in a bit more. Maybe take this, bring it down like this. Okay, grab this curve. Now if I grab the curve, you see it's going to move the whole glass, which is what I want. And I just want to bring it onto the level there. So there you go, and then of course I could put that into a material, go render in Hypershade, and I could put it into, say, something like a dielectric material, which will give me good glass effect like that. And then of course I could come up here. This isn't part of the course, so I'm just shooting through this, turn it into mental ray, because otherwise when I do a render, the smoothing won't work if it's not on mental ray. Pictures, just grab one of my HRDIs, and maybe one of these ones. This one's quite nice. So global illumination, blah blah blah. I could create a little polygon floor for this, like that. Put it into a bling shader, make it white, and then I can just do a little render of that. Of course it's a bit dark, it's a bit light, so I probably need to come in and change my settings. So let's just turn the global illumination off. Yeah, it's a little bit more, but still a bit burnt out. Probably need to put something in the background. So if I just grab these vertices and just do this, I'll change this to a kind of darker colour. This is just to show you. There you go. It's still kind of working through it, but let's do that. Okay, it is on. It's not on. The quality is a bit rubbish on it because I need to put it onto production quality, which of course take longer to render out. But there you go, you've got this kind of wine effect. Now you can't really see through it, and that's because my shadow rays need to come up. So this isn't a course on HRDR renderings, but my ray tracing needs to be increased. 40 on there. Okay. And yeah, I think it's a bit too thing. Anyway, you get the idea. So that's how to use the revolve using Nurbs, and also how to from the Nurbs curves, how to output directly to a polygon mesh instead of the Nurbs. Now let's just take this and just do a Nurbs one just to show you. So I've got it again. we know it's correct. I'm going to come into my surfaces and I'm going to double click the revolve, and this time I'm going to turn it into a Nurbs and revolve it. So there you go, that's the Nurbs version. Of course the Nurbs version gives you the control on this as well, so you can have half a glass if you wanted to. I could also up the amount of divisions to make it a little bit more, and then when I'm finally happy with it as a Nurbs surface, I could then come in and convert the Nurbs to a polygon surface like that, and of course press 3 on the keyboard. So that's my Nurbs, and this is my polygon version of the Nurbs, which of course will allow you to do lots of other groovy things to it, like insert edge loops, insert one in the middle, expand it out, you know, all these kind of things. And then I could, yeah, so you got that kind of thing going on. Alright, so hopefully that's helpful. A little bit more advice on Nurbs modelling. So I think we covered Byrails, lofting and revolving, and that's about all you need really. There's other things in there, but once you understand the principles, you better apply those to other things as well. And work in conjunction with deformers, which is animation deformers, which we come up to animation. It's actually an animation control, and it's going to work on a polygon surface, not a Nurbs surface. Create a deformer. I could use, say, the wire tool. Let's just select that. Oh, I don't know what's going on. Something strange is happening. Just make sure it's yeah. Might need to just kill off my history. Let's try a lattice deformer. Okay, so this is a lattice deformer. These are pretty powerful. Grab these top ones, these lattice points, and you can really start to modify things out. And also these are animatable as well, these deformers. If you delete the history, again these will disappear. But if I was to say, for instance, set a keyframe here, press S on the keyboard and move it to 10, and then I was to move it this way, press S on the keyboard, you'll see that it will deform. And these are used quite a lot in animation, like for body parts and things like that. But if I go in and delete my history, that will no longer work, so be careful. Also, if I delete the lattice, it will go back to what it was before. Okay, so there you go. There's a little bit on lattice deformers there, but the main point to get across to you was the working with the revolve tool, and obviously generating a curve off of a polygon using the edges. So select the edge and then go to convert Nurbs poly edge to curve, like that, and then instantly we have this, the curve, which has been now generated off of the thing. So then I could come into my surfaces again, I could revolve this. Notice what's happened here. It's because the center, it always takes it from this center line, the center of the model, which is here, and my shape was not on the center. So if I just delete this out and we take this, and I generally what I do is move it there, and I need to make sure that this is also centered. So I'm going to press insert, I'm going to press my X key, and I'm going to drag till it snaps to the middle. just move this so that it's centered like that. Come in a bit closer, insert key, press X on the keyboard, snap to that point, press the insert key again. Now if I revolve, there we go, perfect. So this shape, this Nurb shape now has been generated off of an edge from a polygon shape. So this is really important that you get to know these kind of aspects of modelling, especially when working with Nurbs. Okay, so that's about it for the Nurbs modelling. So that's finished this tutorial on the basics of Nurbs modelling. Hopefully I've made it easy to understand, because I've read a few books years ago on Nurbs modelling, and it was actually the Maya handbook, the Autodesk Maya handbook, and it just went into so much detail that really didn't need to be there. It was saying about U and V coordinates and parameterizing and stuff and rebuilding curves, all that we've covered, but it just did it in such a complicated, convoluted way that it was actually quite hard to understand. So hopefully this course has made it a lot easier for you to understand the basics of Nurbs modelling, and from those basics, those building blocks, you'll be able to happily Nurb model away anything you like.